Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today I am using, I showed you these Christmas sentiments, but I didn't end up using it. This is the Believe in the Magic stamp set, and then I'm also using the, I think it's the Vintage Flourish stencil. And so this little stamp, it's big. This is an A2 size card. It's a big stamp, but it's clearly a snow globe with like a little house and some snow hills and some little trees. Lots of really, really pretty like scroll work on the bottom of it. And I just feel like, not that I don't like, I mean, I'm coming around to dies, I guess is what I should say. I am coming around to dies, and I do see how they can really transform into something completely different. But I still love a good colored image. And I feel like this little gemstone kind of got lost in the release because there was just so much good stuff. And so I was like, oh yeah, I want to sit down, I want to color you and really like make you shine. So I stamped 2 of those panels with the No Line Coloring ink from Honeybee, and now I'm going to stamp a mask. Technically, I don't need to stamp the whole snow globe. I actually just need the globe portion of it, but I'm a completist and I have a hard time only stamping a part or coloring a part of something. So I figured I'll just set it aside and maybe I'll use it for something else. Now, to be completely fair, you like the masking part of it, you probably don't even have to do. You could just die cut this whole thing out and use it and still get the same effect. But you know how sometimes like the first time you do something, your creative brain is like, oh, I'll do it this way. And then you realize that you did a lot of work that was completely unnecessary. That's what happened here. So don't mask it. You can just stamp it twice and die cut one of them out. So here I am. This is me just going in, trimming out that globe portion, and then I will put that right over top of the globe. The bottom portion of it, I'm not worried about masking because I know that I'm going to cut one out and put it over top. And then I am using just some pixie tape. This is just some low tack tape to create like a counter or shelf or mantle that this would be sitting on. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that off, and then we're going to start our ink blending. So for the ink blending, you guys know blue is my boyfriend. I chose blue, but I chose more of like a Tiffany blue. So I'm going to do the base all salvaged patina. And then from there, I'll be able to bring in the darker colors, kind of creating this little bit of a halo around our snow globe. And that is why I needed the mask. Again, if I didn't want to do the mask, I could have just added some ink blending around the edges of the die cut snow globe. You live, you learn, you move on. You know, that's just kind of the way it goes. So I did choose, like I said, for a more like Tiffany kind of blue. I thought that would be really pretty behind our snow globe. Just because, you know, normally you have like the white snow falling and all, you know, all that. I just wanted it to feel really kind of like magical with the snow globe. And so I thought blue would suit the best. Plus, I knew that I was going to be doing the base of the snow globe in like warmer browns and gold tones, which looks really, really nice with blue. So from the salvage patina, we're working out to the salty ocean, from there to the mermaid lagoon, and then our darkest color is Uncharted Mariner, and we're not using barely really any at all, maybe just around the corners. We're not using too much of this color. Now, normally I do my ink blending twice, but this time I'm going to stop at once. Then I'm going to put my card onto my sticky mat. I'm going to put my stencil over top of it, and then we're going to do the wallpaper. So I am still going to do the ink blending twice. Just the second time is going to be with this pattern. So just like I did before, all over everything with the salvage patina, working out to that Uncharted Mariner. Can I tell you guys, I'm having a really, really hard time getting into the Christmas spirit. And I think it's because our weather is so crazy. Like, I think that is why, because we haven't really had any true like Cleveland winter weather yet, and it's already almost halfway through November, that my brain is just like, it's not Christmas time. Like, you should be prepping for Christmas. I can't even believe Thanksgiving's like, what, next week after? Crazy. I can't believe how fast it's going. So here, once I do the wallpaper, I'm going to go ahead and remove that mask. And then you want this to be a really light application. So I'm going to try first with the Salvage Patina and just what's left over on my brush. That was not enough. So I am going to pick up some. And this is just really keeping it really light around the edges. But snow globes are clear. So when you're looking through it, you do see some of that color behind. So I don't want the pattern showing through necessarily, but I do want a little bit of that blue around the edges so that it looks like it is clear. So then once I'm done with that, I can go ahead and remove that low tack tape. And then for doing the bottom, the shelf, the mantle portion, I'm just going to move that up. And the only thing is, you do want to make sure that you do get your line straight, like straight across where your wallpaper is, because if you don't, you will probably be able to see it. That's just, when you're doing a scene, you got to pay attention to stuff like that. So here I picked out a couple of different browns, Brush Corduroy, Gathered Twigs, and Scorched Timber. And they are varying darknesses, but they're also varying degrees of warmth. Scorched Timber is definitely a cooler brown, where Brush Corduroy is definitely a warmer brown, and Gathered Twigs is somewhere in the middle. Just use whatever makes you happy. We're just trying to create some interest in that area. Can you see, can you see the bottom of it, even though we're ink blending over top of it? That's the really great thing about that Honeybee No Line ink, is even if you ink blend over top of it, you can still see it. It doesn't completely get rid of the line, which is really great and helpful for no line coloring. Speaking of, let's get into that, shall we? So and if you guys have watched my channel, then you know this about me. I usually don't color my snow like gray, like with cool grays, because it does have a tendency to read a little bit, I don't know. Just like there's no like personality, no character, none of that. So I do like to do my snow and like my clouds with a little bit of purple or blue violet or blue, just to make it more interesting to look at. And since this is more of like a snowy night scene with the lights on and stuff, I did go a little bit darker with the blue violets. I still think it reads as snow by the time that we're all done. You can see I'm using the tip to tip method, which is basically using the lightest color to pick up a little bit of ink from your darker color. And then once I'm happy with the blue violet, I am going to go in with a lighter blue and just kind of touch up a few areas. I'm also going to use the same blue violet combination to color the snow that's on the rooftop. And again, for this one, we're going to add the shadows closer to the roof, as any of the snow that's kind of piled on top will be catching much more light, and that will be the whiter of the areas. And then again, using that tip to tip method to kind of blend that out. I don't own a lot of the blue violets, so this is something that is really helpful for me to create that middle color that maybe I don't already own. So then from there, you can see there's 3 windows on this little house. I'm coloring them as if the little lights are on. So I'm adding my darkest color toward the base of the windows, and then the lightest color towards the top of the windows. And then I'm going to there's 4 trees in this little landscape. And they're all just, they're meant to be evergreen trees. They're drawn like little triangles. And so I'm going to go in and add just a little bit of texture with some flicking. We're not getting crazy here. There's not a ton of real estate. We're just doing our best to give them a little bit of interest. So just kind of flicking down from the top, maybe the middle. If you're not comfortable with doing the 2 layers, then just do it down from the top. and the rest of it, like the flicks, will just kind of fill in. I'm pretty sure I showed you all 4 colors, but I don't even know that I used the YG01 very much at all. So just whatever kind of, and you could even go more of a blue-green versus a yellow-green like I did here. I just prefer a yellow-green. It's your card. Use whatever type of green makes you happy. So getting now down to that 4th tree, there isn't a lot to color in the scene. But it's like a scene within a scene, right? So like we have the scene inside the snow globe, but then we have the scene of our card also. I added just a little bit of gray to the windowsills, and then we're going to do the roof. So where the snow is meeting the roof, there's going to be shadow there. And then we're going to color it so that it gets a little bit lighter as it gets closer to the house, because there should be a gap between where the roof is sticking out and where the house siding is. So that where that gap is, where the roof overhangs, is going to be a little bit lighter, whereas where the siding is meeting the roofing, it's going to be kind of tucked back, so there'll be shadows there. I also added some shadows underneath each of the windows and where the I was going to say ski slope, but it's not. It's where the snow slope meets the house. And then from there, adding a little bit more shading kind of up from where that snow is, where the windows are. The mid-tone is what you're going to see the most of here, this R29, and that's pretty typical. And then, the lightest color will be that R35. So anyway, back to this weather. Like, it was really mild on Halloween, really, really mild. And then our pumpkins went bad because we carved them like a week before Halloween, and like the day before Halloween it was like 80 degrees. It's crazy. It's wild. So they didn't even make it to I mean, I guess they were extra spooky because they were rotting. They were rotting pumpkins. So all of this to say that is why I'm having such a hard time feeling in the season, because my seasons are not seasoning. Like they're just not. So for the snow globe, again, we have like kind of like those edges, and we want to draw the viewer's eye into this scene in the snow globe. So I'm using some blues in the same kind of shades and tones that were already used in the background to create this really round appearance. So I'm leaving a gap so that there is a little bit of a reflective light around the outside edge of the snow globe. And then I'm blending that blue in as close to the center as I need. Once I'm done with that, I'll go back in with the little bit of a darker blue and outline that reflective edge. And this you can kind of play with, kind of go back and forth. The only thing that I will caution you about is you don't want to go over any of your darker colors. So like if you've done really dark trees, don't go over that. The red house here, don't go over that, because what's going to happen is, since the blue is a lighter color, you will drag that ink, and then all of a sudden your beautiful whitish blue ethereal glowing snow globe is going to have a gigantic red streak or green streak in it. You don't want that. For our counter mantle shelf thing, we're going in and putting in just a little bit of wood grain. I've done this in lots of other videos. If you are looking for a more in-depth tutorial on that, I certainly have them out there. But this is just a little bit at the end of it. It's just kind of like the placeholder for the bottom of our snow globe to sit. So here, can you see where I dropped my marker? I dropped it, guys, and it bounced. Now that one, I was like, oh, it's fine because I'm going to cover that up. But then I saw the other one that was on the snow. This is what the colorless blender's for. I went in with the colorless blender. I hit it up a couple of times. If it's not budging, let it dry in between applications of the colorless blender and then get in there and hit it again. And usually it will lift it. And then once I had lifted what I needed, I just went right back over it with those blue violets to blend it back in. So now let's talk about the bottom half of this snow globe. So I chose the E30s family, which is pretty warm. And with that, I am also using a golden yellow combination. Is that what I just said? Combination. Why are words hard? Anyway, a gold yellow combination. It's supposed to be yellow gold anyway. I can't win. Moving on. For the details of the bottom half of the snow globe. So I went in, I started with my browns just to, kind of, I thought, okay, well, maybe that'll be easier to start with my browns. But here's the thing with no line coloring, okay? If you go in with your lighter colors first, you can blow out your lines, which means you end up with blobs. And so if you can, even if you can't do your darkest color, if you could do your mid-tone, that would be, you do your mid-tone to outline where your shadows need to be. So like, for example, here, this is the one that, like the little plaque that's going to hold the title. The outside edge, that dark edge, is not actually part of the plaque. That dark outside edge is actually the base of the snow globe. And that is going to push up the lighter areas, that yellow area. It's going to push it up so that it looks like it's sitting above it. With all of the scroll work, same thing. I went in with my darkest color. I added it where I wanted my shadows to be the darkest, and then I worked out to my lightest. This is going to maintain their shape so that as we're adding in, that detail and other colors around them, we're not losing the stamped image or the shape of the swirls or any of that. It can be very easy to get overwhelmed when you don't have that black outline as kind of like your little safety net. I love a bold black outline, and I do. And if you're on your journey with coloring and you're like, Kelly, I'm not ready for something this, like this with no line coloring, great. Stamp it in black and color it. Like, that's okay. Everybody's at different points. But I do like to try to push myself. This, as I was just telling my son the other day, because we were talking about, he's playing the trombone and it's new to him. He's never played an instrument before and he's struggling. And he was getting upset with himself because he wasn't performing as well as he felt like he should have been. And we ended up having a very long talk about practice. Not everybody wants to practice. And I get that. But as I told him, you can do anything for 5 minutes. I was like, so if practicing the trombone for 5 minutes a day is the best that you can do, then do 5 minutes, because it's better than no minutes. And you may find as you practice for your 5 minutes that now, you're getting better, you're getting a little bit more comfortable. Now you can practice for 10 minutes. And then after a while, you might be able to practice for 15. And I was like, even people who are born being inherently good at something still have to practice. Singers still need voice coaches. The colorists like myself still had mentors that they looked up to, and they, like, for me, I watched Sandy Allnock's videos for years and years and years before I ever even picked up a marker to try. So, like, I look back and I'm like, all the time that I could have been practicing, that I was too discouraged. So just be kind with yourself. Give yourself grace. Be patient with yourself. Everybody needs practice. And I still leave, if you guys have followed my channel from early in the beginning, I leave all of it out there. So even the cards that I made before I made videos, when I first became a card maker, they're all over on Flickr. They're all still there. They don't look like what my coloring looks like now, but they were colored 10, 11, 12 years ago. So that's okay. I'm not still there, but it was the best that I could do at the time, and I continued to practice. So I would encourage you to do that as well, because we all need practice, every single one of us. So anyway, you might have noticed that this is sped up. I don't color this fast. I had to speed it up because no line coloring does take me longer, because I have to really kind of stop and think about where the shadows go, and because I don't have that bold outline to be my little security blanket. I do have a tendency to color a little bit slower. I think the end result is worth it. But I do have a tendency to be a bit slower. So by the time I got done editing this video, it was like 40 minutes long. So I did have to go back through and kind of selectively edit. I didn't want to take anything out, so I did choose to just speed some stuff up, so that way it would all fit in to that half an hour mark, which is really what I try to stick to. But if you're like, Kelly, it's way too fast and I want to know the ins and outs of it, that YouTube gives you an option to slow it down, which I would invite you to do. Just maybe mute it so that I don't sound like the Peanuts teacher. Because that's what it's gonna sound like. It's gonna sound like I've been underwater. So, anyway, this was a little bit of a challenge for me, but that's going to help me grow. And so maybe the next time I sit down and color a no-line image, maybe I'm a little bit faster, or maybe I'm not any faster at all, but maybe I'm a little bit more confident in my ability to get a good look, or get the look that I want, or the effect that I want, because I've taken this time to practice. And I know that practicing is time consuming, and that, time is a hot commodity, man. It's something that none of us have enough of. And so sometimes when you are like, oh, I will have time to get in my craft room, sometimes you just want to be productive and feel like, oh, I made something while I was in there and I walked away and I don't have time to just sit and practice. I totally understand that. But you don't have to practice in your craft room per se. If you get a bunch of images stamped out, you can practice like for me in the evenings, my husband and I, after the kids are in bed, and we finally get to sit down uninterrupted, we sit on the couch and, kind of talk about the day's events and maybe watch a show or whatever. But like, you could absolutely take your markers or your pencils or whatever you're practicing with downstairs. For me, it's downstairs. My office is upstairs, but into, that more kind of family arena, and practice while you're doing other things like watching a show or having, conversation. So you don't have to just practice when you, have time to be in the craft room. So like last night, my husband always gives me a hard time about coloring anyway. Our daughter's third birthday was just this past week, and we did her party this past weekend, and that's a longer story time for another time. But anyway, one of the things that she got was we had bought her some more coloring books, and so she and I were sitting there coloring our little princess pages or whatever, and my husband's always wanted to be like, why can't you just color like a normal person? Why do you always have to add shading and, light source or whatever? And I was like, because it's always an opportunity to practice, man. It's always an opportunity to practice. Okay, so what is that in my hand? You might be asking. I know I rarely use them, so you don't usually see them. That, my friend, is a colored pencil. And it's a dark brown colored pencil. So what am I doing with the colored pencil? This is one of the biggest things that I can tell you for getting a no-line coloring look that is attainable. Once you go in with your markers and you have gotten all your color down, if you need to add in those little details, get some dimension into those little tiny nooks and crannies, grab a colored pencil. It is so much easier with no line coloring to get some more depth with a sharpened pencil than it is to try to get in there with the tip of a marker. I'm not saying that you can't do it. I am just saying it is substantially easier if you use the colored pencil. Here's the caveat. You can't use the colored pencil until you're sure you're done adding any more shading with the marker, because a lot of them are wax-based. In this case, I'm using a Prisma colored pencil, which is wax-based. And you want to make sure they're super sharp. Got a nice tip to get into those little areas to really pound the color in. Like I said, I chose a dark brown, but I could have done a black and then gone over it with a dark brown, or I could have just done the black. And this really helps to add to those shadows, and it's easier to do it with a thin-tipped colored pencil than it is to do with a marker. Same thing goes for highlights. A white, you can see how tiny my little colored pencil is because I keep sharpening it. The white you can use for a highlight, and you would just go over, those areas. For me, I'm doing all of the kind of raised areas, the scroll work, adding, little bits of highlight here and there. And you can see it's really bringing them forward. It's a great tool to use to show, to get those highlights that really doesn't require a lot of work from us. So I am going to use the colored pencil again. I'm going to use the brown to draw in like the crossbars in the windows, because doing that with a marker would leave them very heavily lined. And I don't like to do a black marker or a black pen because, again, it seems like too abrasive for a no line scene. And then I'm going to go in again with this white and go around that reflective light area, that gap that I left. I'm going to go around there and add a highlight. I'm going to add a highlight to the snow on top of the house and the little snow hills. But then you can also use it to add, I am doing the reflection of the light on the snow on the bottom. But you can also use it to add some lightness, some highlights around the whole snow globe, like around the edges of the snow globe. So now once the coloring is done, I went ahead and die cut out the bottom portion. And this is what I'm talking about when I say I made it much harder in the beginning than it needed to be. It didn't need to be this difficult. I could have just colored it all on this one and then put it on the card and it would have been fun. I don't know why I felt like I needed to mask it. But anywho, I did, and here we are. So now I'm going to use my little detail scissors to trim out the top of the snow globe. So then that's going to give me the bottom. Having the two layers does allow the bottom to stick out just a little bit. It sits a little bit higher, which I do like. Here's me going in with that white colored pencil. I almost said gel pen. White colored pencil, and adding, like I was saying, that little bit of lightness and highlight around the edges. And for this one, because you don't have to worry about dragging the color, you can go right over those trees and things. This particular stamp set has a lot of different options for what you can kind of name your snow globe with those little, what are they called? Those little nameplates. And I went with Let It Snow because I thought that was really very cute. And originally I was going to pair it with another sentiment. Now, as I told you when we first started the video, I did not end up using those. I just let the Let It Snow be the sentiment because I couldn't find another place to add the sentiment that didn't take away from the design, and I didn't really feel like it needed it. So I did stamp the Let It Snow in our pigment ink. It's that gold pigment ink, and then I heat embossed it with gold embossing powder. Now I'm going to go ahead and adhere this down over top of our snow globe. Our scene is really kind of coming together now. All of our parts working together. You guys know, if you watch my videos, that I don't love a white outline on my die cuts. I do typically blend them in, and this one is no exception to the rule. So I found a brown that kind of matched my countertop and went ahead and filled that in. When you have a no-line piece, it does make the coloring of the edges just a little bit more challenging, because you do have to pay attention where, your line starts and stops. And then for the one on the wallpaper, I colored that in as well. I think I used a BG45. It was the one that worked the best. So now, as far as shimmers are concerned, I'm adding clear shimmer all over the snow globe portion, so it's nice and sparkly and glittery. And then for the gold scroll work, I am adding some gold shimmer from this pen. I'm using a white gel pen to put some snow into the snow globe. The trick for this is, though, you have to do the dots, the snow dots, in front of the house and in front of the trees, because if you don't, it's not going to look like your snow globe is snowing. So I did add some highlights, like to the windows where the snow would be, the snow on top of the roof, the top of the little snow hill, and then this is me doing the dots, so it looks like it is actually snowing. Alternatively, you could do some dots of glitter or some dots of another adhesive and do like rock candy glitter. That would be great too. In order to add some shine, I am using my glossy accents to go around the edge, and then just inside that reflective light line, I am adding, just a couple of little lines, again, just to give it more texture and more interest. The glossy accents was also used for the little dots on the scroll work, for them to be raised and kind of shiny, and then that's it. That finishes the card. So I hope this inspires you guys to try some no-line coloring, no matter where you're at on your journey. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.